Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming along to the meeting of the Policy and Resources Committee, being conducted from the Chamber and remotely through Microsoft Teams. Translation facilities are available for this meeting, I believe. No, they're not. Thanks for the update. Not available for this meeting, so please don't bother with headsets. Please ensure your microphones are off, and before we begin, I will ask Councillor Finlay M. Stewart to lead us in prayer.
Our gracious God and loving Heavenly Father, as we come before Thee once again on this day, we, Lord, give thanks for this day, and we give thanks, Lord, for another day on mercy's ground. And we give thanks for every mercy and blessing that is ours on this day. And we ask, O Lord, that You would go before us at this time as we meet here as a committee, that You would bless all the members. We pray for the Chief Executive and the staff. We pray for the leader and the convener and all councillors, and we pray, O Lord, for Your guidance and all that is discussed and any decisions that have to be made, that we would look to You and look to do Your will in all things. We remember again today, as we have already heard today before, of those who mourn. We remember Colmian and Belan who mourn family members. We pray, O Lord, that You would draw near to them and that You would bless them at this time, and any others, Lord, who may be mourning at this time as well, that You would be near to them. Remember any of the members or staff who are maybe unwell at this time. We pray, O Lord, again that You would lay Your healing hand upon them and bring them back to health and strength and be with them. So, Lord, we ask that You would be with us now, and that again we ask for Your guidance in all that we do and all that we say, and again, O Lord, that we be united as much as we can in all our deliberations at this time, and seek to do what is best for the people of these islands who we have been elected to represent. So we ask now that You go before us, forgive us for our many sins and shortcomings and failings, and all we ask is in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Stewart. And just to echo the thoughts of the committee, go to our members and members of staff who are suffering loss and grief at this time. The meeting is now being recorded and will be made available on the Collier's website following the meeting. Items 10 and 11 will be taken in private at the end of the meeting, and I'm ruling items 7 and 13 as urgent to allow the matters to be considered prior to the next meeting of the committee. Item 1 is the minute of the meeting of 29th of November 2023, and that's for approval. Agreed. Thank you. Item 2, declaration of interest. As usual, you're invited to declare an interest in any agenda item at this point, and if you become aware of an interest during the meeting, then I'll ask you to declare it at that time. And when declaring that interest, it'd be helpful if members could indicate briefly the nature of that interest. Item 3 on the agenda is the minute of the meeting of Budget and Strategy Board of 16th January 2024, and that's for approval or recommendation at item 3 of the minute. Agreed. Thank you. Item 4, minute of the meeting of the Community Safety Board, 31st January 2024, and again for approval of the recommendation at item 3 of the minute. Agreed, thanks. Item 5 is the minute of the meeting of Human Resources Subcommittee on the 5th of February 2024, and that's for noting. Agreed to note. Thank you. Item 6 is a minute of the meeting of County Gaelic at 6th February 2024 for approval of the recommendations at items 5, 6 and 7 of the minute. Agreed. Thanks very much. Okay, on to corporate matters. So item 7 on the agenda is the cyber incident update. So this report's for noting and provides the details of the cyber attack on the core IT systems, the response and the management of the recovery process. And I'll ask Mr. Bird to speak to the report, and Norma Skinner will also be available to answer members' questions. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief because the report sets out the current position, much of which, of course, members already know as consumers of some of the services. But in terms of the summary, I would say I've been very, very pleased, not surprised, because we have resilient services and resilient employees, but I have been slightly amazed on occasions at how quickly workaround solutions have been implemented to allow services to continue. Now, that doesn't mean that these services are fully back, it means we are discharging our duties, we are doing what we have to do, and a number of these solutions have been ingenious. Some departments, of course, have been hit, services much harder than others. I think finance has probably suffered most and is having to rebuild an awful lot of systems using what material is available, but yet we still function in every respect. So I think you should be very pleased with the progress that's been made. We're now at the stage, of course, not just of recovering, but looking at what we do in future. It's not just recovery and rebuilding. What systems do we use? What cost do they come at? What level of system is necessary? But I'll go through the significant progress just so that we're aware of that. Internal and external communications. We never lost our email, thankfully. Internet connectivity is now back throughout the office. That's on the local area network and in all other offices. That's all sites across the estate. We're rolling out a new phone system. That's been prioritised, as you can imagine, to cover areas of greatest need, but that will continue to be rolled out in recent months. We hope to get printing and scanning services back to full delivery over the next couple of months now that the network is back in place. We are helped in doing this, of course, with partners. National Cyber Security Centre continue to be in touch with Scottish Government, but as anticipated, increasingly, we rely on private sector help to assist us, particularly with things we can't do ourselves, like expert data recovery. Systems-wise, I think you should be confident. This is all under the management of corporate management team. We have an incident management team which meets once or twice a week. And as you can see at 5.4, that's what it does. It gathers information, identifies service issues and cross-service issues, and supports service recovery. And increasingly, of course, the work of the IMT will be to prioritise and to recommend to CMT what level of new systems we have. Some will be on the cloud, some will not, some will be restoration of what we had in the past. And each head of service, of course, is leading service recovery through the plans. We often think business continuity plans, you see them at meetings and we all approve them. I can safely say we have adhered to this one pretty well to the letter, and it has served us well. So it's always reassuring to know that these plans are not just there for ticking resilience boxes or audit boxes. They are of great practical use, and I think that's good as well. It's not business as usual. It's business as usual in some instances, but as I've said, we have ingenious workaround solutions which are allowing a great deal to be done. And I'll leave you to read the details of the report there. Data recovery work continues in cooperation with our partners and cooperation with contractors. Data has been recovered. That's what's important to note. And of course, no correlated data has been found on what's loosely known as the dark web. And of course, we check that regularly. You will recall the undertaking which we gave way back in November, that the minute we see any such, and of course we hope we don't, then we will advise anybody affected and the public. But that has not happened, and that's good to note. In terms of costs, though, of course there are additional costs associated with our recovery. Some are one-off. Obviously, data recovery, buying this, buying that is a one-off. But of course, there are ongoing costs as we move to different systems. These have different licenses. These are not going to be cheaper than what we were doing before. So there's one-off costs and there's ongoing costs. We're still gathering these costs. I will let you know as soon as I have that information. Although of course that's that's ongoing. This committee will be the venue for that information. I would anticipate this item being virtually a standing item for some time. I advised the informal meeting on Tuesday about how we are managing that through the budget process. We have the service support fund. I wouldn't say for occurrences such as this, because nobody expects a cyber attack, but it was a wise decision we took some years ago to establish a service support fund at £500,000. There's not £500,000 left in it, even at the time of the cyber attack, but it is important, I think, that fund is used to support the cyber attack, so that these funds do not impact on service budgets, either particularly now. Going forward, of course, these costs will have to be built in, just as pay rises, changes to terms and conditions are built into budgets. But at the moment, that is not impacting on service budgets, and that, I think, is a very good thing indeed. The other thing I would like to mention, though, it's not all financial, as you can imagine. The report records that the incident has placed additional strain on resources and capacity. Now, that's putting it mildly. For some services, much of their work has been rebuilding and planning how to rebuild the services. That has fallen not on IT all the time. IT, of course, are critical advisors to that process, but that falls on the staff of the service themselves. And I would like to pay tribute to staff at all levels who have not just kept things going, but have rebuilt systems and data and information, call it what you will, in addition to trying to run statutory services. I've mentioned the effect on capacity. I've mentioned the effect on other work. The main casualty at my own level, as you know, has been the review of organisational structures, which I'd hoped to bring to you in December, and will now bring to you next month. So there are some delays inevitably in delivering what we would have wanted to deliver at the time. But I don't think, and I think this series and the December series proved that what needs to be decided, what needs to be before you, what you need to be advised of, all of that has been delivered satisfactorily. So in conclusion, the IMT will continue to work closely with services to identify areas for support, to look at opportunities to improve. You never just build back what you had unless you were very confident that was the best thing. And future-proof service delivery. We'll look at digital efficiencies, of course, where benefits can be derived from such. I ask you, though, to note the additional costs, to note how these are being managed meantime, that you will be, of course, advised on all of these things and on the rebuilding process. So far, so reasonable. I think we have. I think our management of this has been good. I think our recovery process is appropriate. I think it's being appropriately managed. It's being measured. Of course, we will ensure there is no dip in delivery. I mean, like after any resilience event, there's the immediate reaction, there's the planning, then there's the plan to deliver. And of course, you must ensure that momentum is maintained on that. And I think we are doing that. And you can see incremental improvements just in your own work as members, access to services, etc. So I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there, Chair, but I'm happy to take questions.
Leave it on.
Ms. Skinner is not available this afternoon, but if there's anything I can't answer, I will convey that to her, and she can answer members directly.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor McCauley.
Thanks, Chair. Not a member of your committee. Thanks very much for the report, and I think we definitely all admire the amount of work that the IT staff are putting into this, and indeed all the departments who have lost all their data. My question, I don't know if just to get my understanding of when you say recovery, but by recovery, does that mean that we're rebuilding or repairing things that were lost? Or does recover mean that we're finding corrupt data, or we're finding some of the original data and we've recovered it that way? Or is recovery meaning repairing and rebuilding things from scratch, or is it a bit of both?
It is absolutely a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Data has been recovered. That's not always in the most helpful form, of course. But data, and of course, our data is not lost, as it were. It's inaccessible, so it's still there.
Yeah.
So it's there to be recovered when where that can be done. But it doesn't mean, of course, it's recovered in exactly. You don't recover it in a neat file.
Yeah.
Saying, but it's there.
It's there,
And we're recovering it. What I mean by recovery just now, though, is generally working off what we have in email and other systems and rebuilding systems. So, but it is a little bit of both.
Yeah. Well, that's heartening in itself. That you're
Yes,
finding.
it is. It's better to have it, even if it's not in a great form, than not to have it at all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Malcolm, for the report. And indeed, thanks to the team that have been working on this to bring us back to some form of normality. Just a couple of quick questions. One, do we know how our data was accessed in the first place, or are we at liberty to say that?
I'm not at liberty to say that in public.
Okay, that's fine.
But
I understand that.
For the reassurance of members, there will be. I've asked internal audit to, investigate as it would in the usual way, and that will come to members in the second half of this year.
Okay. The second question, on some of our previous updates, the indication was given that none of our data had been taken, but now we're looking for it on the dark web. So have we lost the confidence that data might have been taken?
No, not at all. Not at all. It was simply when the normal result of a cyber attack is that some data is then published by those who have attacked you. There's no evidence that our data has been removed or published, but it's a precaution, and no more than that. There's nothing new in that remark.
Okay, thanks.
But we'll continue to check very regularly.
I believe we've been doing that since the incident happened.
Yes, it's actually something that was done before the incident. It's done routinely. We've just increased, obviously, our vigilance in that regard.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Murray.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee. I'd just like to reiterate the thanks to the staff of the department, the IT department, that have been very stretched, and I'm sure it's been a very, very stressful situation that they've been on, and pay tribute to their own resilience in trying to keep everything going. As they're so stretched in terms of staff and that, are they still having to find budget savings in their department? And if so, should they at this point in time be exempt from that, given the circumstances, and maybe other departments shoulder some financial burden that they've been asked to take, given the circumstances we're in at the moment?
I'll answer that in three ways. We have not asked that service to take any budget savings this coming year. In any case, and you will recall when at the December series you gave me a delegation to reorganize IT in such ways as would support recovery, and I intend to put in place an interim structure, which will certainly not be on the basis of any cuts to their service provision. The IT service was under review. That review will continue, but the last thing the service needs at the moment is a review of its structures. So I will put in place an interim solution for a year, and then we will review in the course of this year. But I have kept in constant touch with Callum Mackenzie, who has responsibility for IT, and with the IT manager and indeed the staff directly, and they are not at this time looking for additional resources. That might become necessary, but the work at the moment is as much in the service areas as with IT. They are advisors, they are supervisors, they are of course looking after our security and all of these things. But they have not at the moment, not at this stage, indicated any need for additional resource, but I'll consider that very favourably, of course, if such a request is made.
Thank you. Mr. Mackenzie. I don't know if your microphone's working. Can someone online tell us if you're hitting that okay? No, I think it's that might be.
No, I can't hear him.
No, it sounds like there's a buzzing coming from it. Yeah, thank you so much. So if you put your own off. There we go. That's doing the same thing, I think. No. Yeah.
To that section.
So we may have to shift. Francis, you may have to shift as well. No, that's. Yeah, try councillors. If you put that one off. Unless the whole lot's gone off. Yeah.
I can hear you just fine. I just can't hear anyone else.
Okay. Thanks, Kenneth. And we're just going to try one more. So you try that one.
Just when I said we didn't need more IT resources at the moment.
Jinxed it.
Okay.
No.
I don't have to go any further.
Kenneth, are you hearing anything?
That's it.
It sounds very
Robotic.
robotic.
Okay, you
Yeah.
can hear me. Okay.
No, I don't think they can. I think we'll just wait till IT comes.
And I'm doing it.
Yours was fine.
I think.
Yeah. Can you put that one off and we'll try Councillor Murray's again? Ray, can you put that one off and we'll try Gordon's again? In case it's the whole system that's gone off.
Gordon, could you speak? Could
On you, Gordon?
Hello, hello?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
that one's okay.
Yeah.
Is it a roaming mic, Gordon? Fine's fine, yeah. Just excuse us online. We're just having to ask Councillor Mackenzie to get steps up. For those online, there's a quote saying this better be worth it.
Well,
Go
Mr.
ahead,
Crichton
Ray.
never
Yeah.
thinks anything I say is worth it. So. And I think I've probably forgotten what I was saying. I'm exhausted. Yeah, well, let's start again. I'm not a member of the committee.
Sorry, I can't take your
missed the
question now.
starter,
Sorry.
Mr. Barr. Okay.
Yes, I was.
I missed the start of Mr. Barr's thing because I was getting this report printed actually because I didn't have it. And like everybody else has said, you know, congratulations to IT department. I know I've seen them working away and they must be fed up seeing us councillors coming in to interrupt. I was going to ask, well, I'm encouraged, very encouraged by what the chief executive has said to Ian MacLeod, that or what he didn't say. So that is encouraging. I wonder if any other councils in Scotland have been affected, or are we the only one? And is there any rhyme or reason to that?
There have been a number of attacks on the IT systems of Scottish councils in recent weeks, and also, interestingly, largely are often around the time of our own attack. But 3 councils in Kent were subject to the same kind of attack as we were only last week. The British Library the week after us. It's the national cyber people will say it is a question of when, not if, you're subject to a cyber attack. I mean the aim of all this work is not to prevent these cyber attacks happening, because they will, but just to minimize their effect if they do. That's the reality of it, because no organization that operates with a couple of thousand staff, all with access to email, can ever be can never be totally secure. It's just not possible. But what we can try and do is minimise the effect to the maximum degree possible. That's I had an interesting conversation with SIPA, who were the first public sector body to be subject to this kind of attack. And although I can't talk about that in public, you can gather from my remarks what the gist of the conversation was. But it was an interesting conversation, and I will relay it in another forum about not just what you do, but how you how the focus is really on minimising the effect.
Thank you. I see no other lights on, and that might be because we're suffering a cyber incident at the moment. So if it's okay with members, I think we'll maybe just take a 5-minute break, just let IT do their stuff. But before we go, I just reiterate the comments that have been made by all members so far. For a small authority to cope the way we have with suffering such a serious cyber incident, I think it's credit to the staff and the officers that are looking after us, and also, you know, the members' patience has been very much appreciated, I believe. So it's worth mentioning that as well. But yeah, so if you're okay, we'll take a 5-minute break just now. We'll come back 25 to 25 to, just to give IT a chance to have a look. Okay, thank you very much. So we were on item 7 and there weren't any further lights on or hands up. So we were at the final stage. Recommendation is at 3.1 of the report, and I'm just wondering, do members agree the recommendation? Agreed. Thank you very much. Next up, finance and policy, and that is a report seeking approval for a change to the council tax on empty homes and second homes policy. This applies to second homes. In 2013, councils in Scotland were given powers to levy additional council tax on empty homes in certain circumstances. At this time, councils were also permitted to charge between 50% and 90% on second homes, and the Comhairle introduced a 90% charge with a 10% discount. In 2018, the regulations were amended to allow councils to charge between 50% and 100% on second homes, and the Comhairle implemented a 100% charge on second homes from the 1st of April 2018, removing the discount previously applied. During 2023, the Scottish Government issued a consultation regarding the charges levied on empty and second homes, which resulted in councils being allowed to charge up to 200% on second homes from the 1st of April 2024. The introduction of a 200% charge would generate around 800,000 of additional income for the Comhairle. I'll ask Norman to speak to the report. There we go, Norman.
Thank you, Chair. I think you've covered the main points there yourself. As part of the consultation exercise, we, as a Comhairle, held meetings of the Budget Board and the Housing Member Officer Working Group to sort of take a view on the items that were raised in the consultation. There was fairly unanimous support for the introduction of a levy on these properties, and this is now the government introducing the legislation which allows us to charge the 200%. This brings the policy into line with what's already in place for second homes. On the basis that there was support during the consultation phase, this report recommends that we implement the charge from the 1st of April. As you said, this will realise additional income of about 800,000 for the Comhairle. As part of the introduction of the policy, obviously it may influence what people are going to do with the homes. So we've suggested a discretionary policy of allowing 6 months exemption where people are actively advertising the property for sale or for long-term let. I think that's the main points. Happy to take any questions.
Excellent, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Murray? No. No, sorry, Councillor MacLeod, you're flashing first.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks, Norman, for that, for the report. I feel I fully support this for second homes, especially where the owners don't live in our postcodes, if you like. But I feel it's maybe a bit much for people who do live in these postcodes and spend the money they earn in these communities. So is there a way where we can tailor that?
I'm not sure if there is, but I'll ask Norman if you can come back to me.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not quite sure of the question.
All right, sorry, no, what I'm saying is we've got a large chunk of people who have second homes in these islands that don't live on the island. So none of the money that they earn from these homes go back in this economy. But equally, there are people who spend a good chunk of what they earn from a second home in the economy. So should we be penalising them as much?
I think if we introduce that second homes policy, I think we'll have to do it for all the houses. I don't think we could exempt individual properties.
Okay.
Okay, if you just leave your mic on just in case we need to come back to you.
Just a second question as
Yeah.
well. Around how does this, I don't know if it's non-domestic rates or whatever, second homes that are rented out as a business or whatever, they don't actually pay anywhere near the same amount of money. Is that not something we could target as well?
Well, Jenny will come in on that one.
Yep,
Thank you,
Jen.
Chair. So the non-domestic rates properties, the ones that are let on a short-term basis, on a commercial basis, they're on the non-domestic rates roll. So they're not on the council tax roll, so not subject to this policy change. This policy change is more for people who have a second home, maybe that possibly family are using, or it's sitting empty a lot of the time. So they're not commercially letting these properties, so they're not making any income out of these properties, the second homes. The ones that are commercially let are on the non-domestic rates roll and not subject to council tax. And in the most part, a lot of these ones get small business bonus schemes, so they're not subject to rates either because of the size of the properties.
Okay, thanks. It just seems like a big loophole to not pay, if you like. Thanks.
I think as well, the introduction of this policy brings the second homes into line with the empty homes. There's a bit of an anomaly about whether a house was an empty property or whether it was a second home. So this brings it into line, the two into line.
Thank you. So if you just leave it on, I'll bring Councillor Murray in.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I think picking up on Councillor MacLeod's point was, does the council have any powers over Airbnbs and short-term rents? And would this be included, or is it just, because I think, hope I'm not implying anything Councillor MacLeod is saying, but there's quite a lot of income made on homes that is not spent in the local authority, spent somewhere else. And as he said, the second homes, people are probably trying to do them up or keep them in the family name, and they'll be penalised. So has the council got any powers over Airbnbs, short-term lets?
Yep.
Thank you, Chair. So with the rates roll, the legislation surrounding the small business bonus, which is what most of these properties are getting, it's not discretionary. So we have no say over that. It's legislative. So if somebody applies and they meet the criteria, then the council doesn't have any discretion to say, well, actually, we can't do that. It's something that's in legislation. So they are entitled to get that small business bonus. They do pay other costs. So they pay for their license. So they have their letting licenses they have to get. And they also have to pay their water and their sewerage separately. They also pay for their waste collection. So they are paying towards some services.
So would the council have any scope on raising council tax for these properties at all?
No, it's NDR. If you would just explain that.
So they're not actually on the council tax roll, so we can't raise council tax because there is no council tax charged on these properties. So they're on the non-domestic rates roll.
Thank you for that clarification. That was useful. Any other? Ian?
Thanks, Chair. Still not in your committee. My question is a flip of that question, actually. There are people I have heard that have their second home up here, but they pretend it's a non-domestic one that they're renting it out, but they only rent it out for 2 or 3 months, and they actually use it all summer long or winter long for a second home to avoid the tax. So we should be collecting. I know it's hard to just distinguish between the two. There are obviously lots of genuine people out there that have a business and they are renting out their properties. But what about the ones that masquerade as pretending to be renting out the properties that we should be getting 200% from? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. And I think there's something to do with the times that is advertised, but I'll pass it on to yourself.
So Thank you, Chair. They introduced new laws about 2 years ago, roughly, to kind of get round that. So people now who are on the non-domestic rates roll they have to prove to the assessor, in order to stay on that rates roll, they have to prove to the assessor they have actual income from these properties and that they have a minimum occupancy of 140 days per year. So it's not as simple as, yes, that possibly could have happened in the past, but now there's a lot more controls in place. So they have to prove their income and they have to prove their bookings for these properties.
Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any other questions or comments? Don't see any hands up. Okay, thank you very much for that. So there's recommendations for approval at 3.1 of the report. Do we agree? Agreed. Thank you very much. Item 9 relates to education provision, and it's a progress update to the Comhairle in relation to the proposed sports facility at Stornoway Primary School and to clarify the current financial position of the project. Since approval of funding, the project has progressed through the tendering of a supplier for the tensile fabric structure element of the building and the commissioning of a professional construction services that include a quantity surveyor, building services engineer and structural engineer. The estimated cost of the planned building has been confirmed at 3.4 million, an increase of 1.45 million on the agreed budget. Work has been undertaken to amend the design and scale of the building to bring the development within range of the agreed budget. A revised design that reduces the overall building size has been costed using the same modelling at 2.25 million. The estimated £2.25 million development cost includes a contingency element that is required to be identified to cover any increases in costs or unforeseeable issues during the construction. So I believe we have Donald McLeod here to speak to the report. Donald?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for that summary as well. The report was considered by Education, Sport and Children's Services Committee yesterday, and for the interest of this committee, it was taken forward onto your agenda as well, and particularly in relation to the financial elements of the project. As has been described in the summary, the project has been progressing and developing over the last 12 months or so, and in the recent times, particularly important steps taken in the commissioning of professional construction services, most notably in the current circumstances, the appointment of consultant quantity surveyors who have been able to undertake highly detailed cost planning on the project. The outcome of that work is, as described in the report, confirming that the project cost, as was originally planned for a hall of 740 square metres, is now confirmed to be at 3.4 million. The budget agreed in relation to the project was confirmed in the setting of the capital programme for 2023 to 28 at 2 million. And we consider that to be the standing decision of the maximum budget for the project. And in light of that, the building projects team have been scaling the project to try and bring it close to that 2 million project cost, which they have pretty much now done. But an element of it, in terms of contingency and a risk pot, sits above that of the 2.25 million. The remodelling of the building has resulted in a reduction in the size of the games hall area from 570 metres to 470 metres, the equivalent of reducing from 4 badminton courts to 3. It's important to note as well, though, still that this, although it is a reduction from the original design, does still represent a significant increase in the capacity of for PE delivery at Stornoway Primary of over 400%, and creates considerably more than the timetabled requirement of PE that's required for it. Alongside the development of it for the provision of PE, the development is linked to creating capacity for universal free school meal expansion for primary 6 and 7, which is a Scottish Government commitment. The reason that is pertinent in this case is that the expansion will put increased pressure on the dining capacity at Stornoway Primary, which uses the current assembly hall, which is a shared provision with PE. And creating this facility will increase the dining capacity and the PE capacity. Comhairle has made application to the Universal Free School Meals Expansion Fund for an element of the project, and we await the outcome of that financial contribution should it be successful. The report then seeks to members to consider that and it recommends the It recommends that we agree the amendments to the plan to bring the project within the budget of £2 million, and also to agree for the £2.25 million project development costs, subject to the approval of that School Meal Expansion Programme funding. I'm happy to take questions from members on that, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. MacLeod. Are there any questions or comments from members? Mr. McCauley.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Don, for the report. It's now been 2 years and 3 months since we sat in the chamber and promised the Stornoway Primary this building. Do we know why why 2 years, 3 months later? I mean, we all have to accept that things have gone up in that time, but what has been the main delay or delays in us in the last 2 years, 3 months, where we haven't even put the spade in the ground yet? Thank you.
Ray, could you put your mic off? And Donald, if you put yours on and just leave it on, that'd be, yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the project has had some development delays through it. There have been delays in agreeing the scope of the project in first instance, but also there were some significant drivers to the delays over the last 12 months, particularly. Firstly, in terms of procurement and agreeing procurement for the tensile fabric structure, which is the first of this type of structure that the Comhairle is aiming to build. That had complications specifically relating to professional indemnity cover and to the fact that tender submissions were from international suppliers, which had significant legal implications for the Comhairle, which had to be addressed. Secondly, there were a number of complex issues with our insurers relating to the building itself, in transport, in storage, in construction, and in post-completion. That took quite a considerable amount of time to resolve with our insurers. Then working through the appointment of the professional consultants added to that as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. So, for most of, I take it, these delays, we're waiting for the insurers to get back to us, or I don't quite know what you meant by the procurement. Can you go through that one again, Donald? But were the insurers just taking months and months to reply to us?
In terms of the insurance issues, it wasn't so much that there was long periods of time between replies. It took a lot of meetings back and forth to go over the proposals, the issues that the insurers were highlighting. It took multiple meetings and multiple presentations from the building projects team to the insurers to satisfy them around the various issues. And as I indicated, there were multiple elements to that, from the transportation of the building from procurement through to it arriving in the UK, to it being shipped to its final location, to it being stored and transferred to a third-party contractor, to the construction phase, to the final building completion, including issues around the specific position of the building in relation to the existing school building that had stipulations from the insurer. So it was a complex process to go through.
Last question, sorry. Are we still using the international supplier?
As it stands at the moment, the successful tender from the procurement was an international supplier.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie, you're wanting in next, I believe.
Good. Yeah, that's an interesting number of questions that were asked by the councillor, which actually wasn't touched on probably at the Education Committee sufficiently. But anyway, I'm obviously disappointed about the decision that was taken yesterday. But I do have one question. I was told that when I came in at the start of the meeting that Councillors MacDonald and George Murray had consulted with the leader and the convener and were told that this report was being withdrawn from the Education Committee. There was actually still time. It wasn't a case that you had to wait for another month or whatever for the next series of meetings. It could have been for the council, presumably next week, to consult with the wider parent body. But okay, I just would like an answer as to was that the case, and why was a different decision taken, and the report just proceeded with if it was going to be withdrawn.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. And I'm sure Councillor Murray will back me up when I said we looked at the possibility of delaying it to the next series, but we had some further discussions, and there was a concern that the tender that we have in place at the moment would run out, and that if that was to go to the tender again, that the price would only increase. So in this debate and discussion yesterday, it didn't come forward. There wasn't a request for a delay, so that's why that wasn't taken forward. Councillor Murray.
You want to go, Ray?
Yeah, well, is it the case that the two councillors came and saw the convener and yourself as leader and asked if this could be withdrawn, and then it wasn't?
They asked if there could have been a delay.
A delay to what?
To making a decision to the next series.
Also, it wasn't going to be withdrawn?
No. Councillor Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to clarify, Councillor Mackenzie, we asked for a delay for a month. For a month. That was, it was not a complete withdrawal. It was a delay for a month. I'm sorry, Councillor MacDonald isn't here to confirm that, but that was the way the conversation went. Yeah, I have to say.
And just through the discussion yesterday, there was a feeling that going back to consult wouldn't change the facts of the case. So it would be good for the parent council to have had that opportunity to go through it, but it wouldn't have done that, and it would also possibly have affected the price.
You indicated that.
Yeah.
To us.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments? I see. Oh, sorry, Francis. Councillor Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. I don't want to go rehearse. We had a long discussion about this yesterday, but I thought there was one very good point brought up, I think, by Councillor MacDonald about demonstrating to the parent council in body rather than on a sheet of paper what the size was going to look like, and I wonder if it's possible in an attempt to meet them, discuss that with them, show them, and maybe answer these same questions that Mr. MacLeod just really helpfully answered to Mr. Macaulay there, because I think some of that is really pertinent, and perhaps they haven't had a chance to hear, or not many of them have had the chance to hear all of these. So I don't know, is it possible to add that to the recommendation, to make a further recommendation that the parent council be met and have that opportunity to have an on-site visit of ISL and see the size of what's the proposal, and to hear these really pertinent points that perhaps, well, I certainly hadn't heard some of that and wasn't able to say it to them when we met. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I thought that was a useful suggestion. So engagement shouldn't stop just because there's decisions being made. I think it's worth a while kind of investigating that as an option. I think it'd be quite useful for them to see that. So I'll bring Donald in.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if it's for me to comment on in some ways, but I don't know if it requires a recommendation to do that. A commitment would be happy to provide that to the parent council. I think it was important to note, as was noted at the committee yesterday, that the parent council were informed of this in December 2023. So it's not the case that they've only known about this for a matter of a few days. We have made them aware that this was what was happening with the development, and also, in fairness, the report has been provided because members were seeking update on this matter. So that it was important that the report be provided to give information on the current position. And I think it's also important to further note that with recommendation B in place, the outcome of the funding from the Universal Free School Meal Expansion Programme outcome may determine it having to go back to the next series anyway for further consideration.
Thanks, Councillor Murray.
Yeah, I think I'm just talking about taking people along with and building a good relationship. And I am aware, I think it was made clear that a couple of members of the parent council had met yourself in December. It wasn't the issue you were meeting them about, but you told them at the end of the meeting that there was a suggestion that this was having to be scaled back. But I don't think they had the detail of that until last Wednesday, and I think it was Thursday actually, before some of them could access it. So it was just a suggestion to, as a commitment to have that kind of discussion with them, I think would be helpful, and would, you know, there was a steering, was the steering committee that was called, that had been meeting, and I think they had felt the lack of that going forward. Hadn't met for a while.
Thank you. I believe we've got a commitment there from Donald to take that forward, so we will take that forward. I'll bring Councillor Murray in the room on next, and Councillor Finnegan, I've seen your hand online, so I'll bring you in after, if that's okay. So, Gordon.
Thanks, Chair. In respect to the meeting in December 2023, what I gathered from meeting with the Parent Council was they weren't aware that the quotes were going to be reduced from 4 to 3. Were they told that? That's what I gathered from speaking to them.
Mr. MacLeod.
When the Parent Council office bearers were informed of this in December 2023, they were informed of the total development cost, as was expected at that time, of the 3.4, I think it was actually 3.5 million, because a little bit more work has been done since then to try and bring it down. And that the likely path for the corner would be to have to work with the 2 million budget, which the only option to do that was to reduce the size of the hall. We didn't talk in specificity about badminton court sizes, but it was clear that our only option was to reduce the size of the hall. And in that discussion, there were some views from Parent Council about seeking to fundraise for the alternative gap, but that presented problems of extending the time pre-construction to allow work like that to happen, and only incurring further cost.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Finnegan.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was just to back up what everything that Don's been saying, and yourself as well. It's really just the point I wanted to make was the about the withdrawal of the report. There was no formal request made at the meeting or a proposal or an amender put forward to that. So that's why it wasn't really looked at as a possible other option, you know. So it was really, it only sounded like to me it's only been an ad hoc discussion with yourself and the convener. Yeah. So if it's not put forward as a proper amendment, then it's you know, it's not going to happen. So
thank you, Councillor Finnegan. I don't see any other hands up or any lights on, so to bring this to a close, but just one thing I want to say is that the support for this project from the Education Committee and PNR in the corner has been pretty consistent since we've agreed to set a budget for it, and it is disappointing that the size has had to reduce, but the commitment to keep that budget and try and build the best thing we can with the money available, I think we've put together a decent package that's I think provides the option for up to 75 hours of PE when there's only a requirement for 34 hours. So I think there's scope to increase certain activities in the school with this extra capacity. So, you know, my credit to the team for bringing forward this project. As I say, is disappointing. It's been reduced from what we were hoping it was going to be, but I just want to put that on record. So the recommendations for approval are at 3.1. Do we agree? Great, thank you very much. Next up is item 10, and that will be taken in private at the end of the meeting, as will item 11. So that takes us on to item 12. And this report seeks approval for the response to the Scottish Government's consultation on a heat in buildings bill. The proposals include making new laws around the heating systems that can be used in buildings, and the introduction of new laws requiring homeowners and private landlords to meet a minimum energy efficiency standard. We have Anna Hume here to answer members' questions, and I'll pass over to Anna. And sorry, I forgot to thank you, Donald, for your presentation previously. So, Anna.
Yeah, a lot longer than I.
Sorry. Okay. It's okay.
Thank you, Chair. So proposals for the bill include introducing a heating building standard, which would prohibit polluting heating systems in all buildings, so domestic and non-domestic buildings, by 2045. It's also proposed that the minimum energy efficiency standard would be set for all domestic properties.
Sorry, Anna, I hate this because I get told to do it all the time. Could you speak up? The members in the room can't hear.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Will I start from where I was, or?
Yeah, if that's okay, yeah.
So yeah, proposals include prohibiting polluting heating systems in all buildings, as well as setting a minimum energy efficiency standard, which all properties would be having to meet. So there is the potential for some negative impacts in the Western Isles, including impacts relating to housing and fuel poverty. So the consultation response has been drafted, aiming to highlight and address some of these potential negative impacts. So happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from members on this? Angus, Councillor McCormick.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, I was very interested in this report because, and I wondered whether there would be any merit in including some of the statistics relating to fuel poverty in the report. There is reference made to fuel poverty, but there aren't any statistics. It might be useful to use the statistic of 82%, which was mentioned at a recent conference that I attended. And also the fact that this matter has been raised in committee in the House of Commons, just to emphasise how dire the situation is in regard to fuel poverty. And I mean, we have traditionally in the islands, we've used peat. There's a lot of people who've got wood burners in our islands. I know that. And the implication of this is that at some point in the future, these we will not be able to use these fuels at all. What I'm hoping is that in the meantime, once we've got our turbines up and running, that the cost of electricity in these islands will have dropped to next door to nothing. It should. It should. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. Anna, you take a note of that so that we can include that in the consultation response. Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor Mackenzie, were you wanting to come in?
Yeah, I was going to come in there. I think Angus has actually touched on basically the same thing and added to it by referring to the statistics on fuel poverty. And I think that is very important. And I'm going through the questions, and I agree with almost all of it. And most of the questions have to do with finance or the lack of finance. And it's ironic that it's coming at a time when we are going to have all this extra energy going through the island. And it's important that, some consideration being taken to that, and that if we're supplying the rest of the country with power and all the rest of it, and coupled with the fact that the traditional houses, people and the elderly population, were just, a lot of people would just not be able to afford to do the changes that are required if they're taken to the extreme that they are suggesting. So I think between, the houses, the poverty, and also the fact that we are actually going to be supplying energy to the rest of wherever, the UK, that these things, considerations should be taken into account.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. I think if there's natural resources on the islands that are being used to support the rest of the population, the least we can get is some benefits. And I think the cost of fuel being one of them. An island tariff seems like a absolutely cert. It should happen. So yeah, we're making that case on a number of fronts. But yeah, I'm sure that'll be fed into this consultation as well. So thank you for that. I don't see any other lights or hands up. So we'll move to recommendation at 3.1, and that's for approval. Oh, sorry, Norrie. The light's shining on your thing. I can see it then. Norrie.
Hide in the corner here. Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. Off the back of what Councillor McCormick and Councillor Mackenzie have just raised, I think it's only fair to point out the good work that's been done by some of the existing community turbine companies in addressing fuel poverty in the islands and the steps that they're taking within the communities that they serve to help residents with assessing the quality and the measures they can take with the existing housing stock to do the best that they can for folk who are experiencing heat and fuel poverty And it would be nice to see that getting broadened out when we do get the bigger wind farms onshore and offshore coming to the island. So it would be remiss not to mention the good work that's been done currently by our community turbine companies in addressing fuel poverty for particularly the elderly and folk in hardship. So I think it's merited to make note of that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think we're in agreement there. Okay, so recommendations of 3.1 are for approval. Agreed. Thank you very much. Next up, item 13 on the agenda. This report details the outcome of the review of polling places and polling districts and seeks approval of the list of polling districts and polling places. The initial stage of the review invited comments by the 3rd of November 2023 on the existing polling scheme, to which there were no responses. Polling places will continue to be reviewed following each electoral event. And there's a recommendation for approval of 3.1, and Derek is available to speak to the report if required. But unless there are any questions, we'll just go to the recommendation. Do we agree the recommendation for approval? Thank you very much. Takes us on to item 14. Sorry, thank you, Derek. Item 14, this report seeks approval of the Corniers British Sign Language Plan 2024 to 2030. The Corniers' first BSL plan was approved on the 2nd of October 2018, and the respective BSL Progress Report 2018 to 24 is appended to the report. The Cornier approved the draft BSL Plan 24 to 2030 on the 29th of November 2023. Went out to consultation with known BSL users and their representatives via the Corniers Have Your Say consultation pages, and through community councils, the Outer Hebrides planning partners, and the Western Isles Sensory Centre. As no feedback was received by the initial closing date, the consultation period was extended to the 14th of January 2024, and the amended closing date was circulated to stakeholders. Once approved, the BSL action plan will be input to Interplan to enable services to implement and monitor the actions through their business plans. Fiona Napit's available, I believe. Yeah. To answer any questions if required. I don't know if you want to say anything to the report, Fiona.
Thank you, Chair. There's nothing really to add, but happy to take any questions.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Are there any questions or comments from members? Not at this stage. So there's recommendations for approval at paragraph 3.1. Agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 15, reports outstanding. There are none. So we're just going to go into private, but for those online, the next scheduled meeting for the committee will be the 24th of April 2024. And we'll move into private now, please. Thank you very much.